think I picked a pretty good venue, air conditioning, amenities and other benefits. My name's Bradley Stewart. I'm the Public Liaison Officer for the fire up here at Tumut, but my normal day-to-day job is in Wagga for the Rural Fire Service. So thank you for coming. I understand this fire has been of some concern to the community. It's testament to your presence here today. But before I get too far into a briefing, I just wanted to draw a few things to your attention. This session's being recorded so we can post it onto Facebook for those that can't make it here today. Obviously 2 o'clock's not always going to be the best time for everyone. We have the local member, Dr. Joe McGurr here. We have representatives from the council here. We have Steph Cook here, the member for Cootamundra. The local police are here. We even have the Army here, the Air Force I can see up the back. So we've got good representation from multiple different groups here that, I may have to defer to some of them to help answer some of the questions. So, the situation is, day 14 of this fire started by lightning. It's gone pyrocumulus nimbus on 2 separate occasions that I know of. So if anyone's unsure what that means, it's generated its own weather event. The heat being released from this fire was so great, the smoke column punched well up into the atmosphere, resulting in lightning and some rain and some very erratic winds. On the same night that occurred, the fire down at Green Valley went pyro-CB, or pyrocumulus nimbus, and unfortunately a weather event down there flipped a 8-tonne truck on its side, resulting in the death of a firefighter, and another 3 firefighters were put into intensive care. So the situation is, fire started on the 28th by lightning up in the Ellerslie Range area. It's currently on its own at 288,000, that's not right, it's at 300 plus thousand hectares. And there's another fire not too far away from it called the East Orney Creek fire, which is on its own at about 30,000 hectares. So we're currently managing this fire and this fire. These other fires here that are of a lighter grey in colour are fires that are in the immediate area that we need to be aware of, and how they're, what actions are being done to manage those, and how we work together with other incident management teams in this local area. So there's another incident management team in Albury and there's one down in Cooma. But essentially, I know you all really want to hear about what's happening in this part of the world. Currently, we have in excess of 400 firefighters on any given shift working the fireground. We've got, I think I heard the number was around 80 pieces of heavy equipment. So it's graders, bulldozers and the like. We have multiple aircraft. On a number of days, we haven't been able to fly those aircraft due to the smoke impact across the area, and we've all seen it. Visibility in some areas was down to less than 200 metres in some days, so it's far too unsafe for the aircraft to fly under those conditions. Unfortunately, we have lost a lot of property. Okay, Batlow itself has taken a fairly big hit. Tumbarumba's taken a big hit, and a number of outlying rural properties have also suffered some substantial damages, and Taubingo itself has taken 6, I think, property losses that I'm aware of in that area. So it's a big fire, it's consuming huge amounts of resources, it's affecting a lot of people, and it's one fire of many fires burning in the eastern seaboard of New South Wales. I think last time I paid any attention, we're at 110 fires in the state of New South Wales. 50 of them were uncontained. So, the short story for this fire as it stands at the moment, and I'll keep referring to it now in context, it'll just be the Tarcutta, Westbrook Road, Auburn areas. We have extensive containment lines built around it, and we're building additional ones and we're strengthening existing ones. Today, we have 2 medium heli-tac helicopters. They carry 1,400 litres each, and they're whacking this fire as hard as they possibly can. We have 6 raft firefighters, so there's remote area firefighters, working up in an area, the name escapes me at the moment, I think it's off the Tarcutta Trail for those of you who are familiar with the lay of the land up there, working with hand tools, being supported by the aircraft. They've walked into the fireground itself, so they're well away from trucks. They don't have good use of water, they use dry firefighting techniques, so chainsaws and tools. So they're working really hard. We hope not to have to do any backburning in this part of the world. The last thing we want to do is put any additional fire into the landscape. Okay, so there's been some concerns that we were going to put a very big backburn in this part of the world. That is not the case. The last thing we want to do is put any additional fire into the landscape. And the reason for that is that on Friday, the weather conditions are going to deteriorate just a little bit, not as bad as it was the other day. So we're likely to see very high fire conditions here, possibly even some pockets of severe. So under severe fire conditions and above, it's all but impossible to fight a running fire, because it's just too dangerous for firefighters, and it's more or less a waste of water and time, because what you put out, something will come around and pick up and start burning again. So we generally focus on life and property under those conditions. So, the words from Roger Orr, who's the incident controller, who's also the district manager for this area, is we are very confident that in the next 2 days we should have most of the the active fire in this part of the world extinguished and contained for this part of the fire. So I'm just going to flip the board. Here's a map I prepared earlier. So we've got containment lines along Westbrook Road. So Wagga City Council have been exceptionally helpful. They have some very, very good operators. They're getting very good feedback from the staff and the volunteers up in Tumut, because they've been up there helping as well. They've engaged additional heavy plant operators, and we are working very hard to build containment lines and additional containment lines, so more than one option for pulling the fire up should it run. The black lines here are what we call blacked out edge. So there's no active fire that we're aware of. It's not to say that it isn't there. There may be small bits of undetected fire that are invisible to the naked eye unless you walk right up to it with what we call a TIC, a thermal imaging camera, and we can look with a handheld device. But we're doing high altitude fluoride, so thermal forward-looking infrared radar to pick up the heat signature of the fire where there's hot spots, and then we go in and we target those areas for additional works where it's needed. So the FLIR runs are not showing any active fire edges except for where you see these little red dots periodically. So there's a few edges up in here, and this is that area that they're working on, the RAFT team, supported by aircraft. So Friday's going to be the pressure day. Clearly under a northwesterly influence, it'll be driven in that direction. So if there's any problems in this part of the world, it should be pushed back into the fire ground. But in saying that, those of you with a little bit of fire experience will appreciate that fire will back, albeit at a slower rate against the wind, as if it was coming down a hill. So it's just got a reduced rate of spread, but it will still move against the wind and potentially cause a few dramas, but we'll have resources in this area to manage that. The weather systems at the moment are going through what we call a 4-day cycle. So we get a bad day, then we get 3 days where we can get in and do some really good work, and then another bad day comes and we have to prepare and position ourselves to manage those bad days, and then again we hook into doing the really good work afterwards. There has been some backburning operations, and it's not on this map, so I'll flip it back over. Down here near the Downfall Nature Reserve, we had a breakout down there the other day, and again we're confident that we've got sufficient resources, equipment, aircraft, boots on the ground, and we've got good containment around that. Do we have containment all the way around this fire? No, we most certainly do not. We have a very large amount of uncontained fire edge all through here, and if you've been paying any attention to the news, which I have no doubt you have been, we've sustained some very big losses across the landscape. We've lost 30,000 hectares of softwood pine plantation, which is going to have a massive effect on the local economy up around Tumbarumba, Batlow and Tumut. The Mount Selwyn? has taken a big hit. Kiamba, there's been some losses up in there with some of the historical buildings, and Cabramatta, thank you, I'm a little bit tired. They've taken some significant losses up there, but our biggest concern is obviously life, then property. There's some significant, nationally significant assets in this area, so the electricity grid, Snowy 2.0, the hydro plants. If we have any major impact on those, it will not just affect the power supply to New South Wales, but also Victoria and down into South Australia. So we're working very, very hard to wrap this fire up, but most of you would appreciate, to be absolutely confident this fire's out, we need rain and lots of it, 200, 300 mils plus. I think I've more or less covered it. I'm hoping I've covered it satisfactorily. We've got lots of containment lines around this northern part of the fire. We've got a lot of aircraft working it. There's not much in the way of active fire, and we've got close containment in a number of places. So that's where we're able to get vehicles right up to the edge of the fire. With the exception of that small pocket in around the top here, we've got close containment. Does anyone have any questions? Yes. So like I said, that small pocket, we've got 6, that's the raft team, so remote area firefighters. Today's day 1, supported by 2 medium helicopters which carry 1,400 litres each. At one fire I went to recently, 2 of those helicopters moved well over 200,000 litres of water in one day. Yesterday, that part of the fire got hit with the equivalent of 14 large air tanker loads of water and retardant and foam. So it's been hammered pretty hard, but yesterday's aircraft did not put it out on its own. We need firefighters on the ground to put the fire out. Aircraft on their own will not put out fires.
And finding enough water?
Yes, we're getting good supplies of water. They've had a slightly better year up there on the range than what we have down here on the flatlands. So there's good water there. Part of the heavy plant supplies is semi-trailer loads that we're able to shift large volumes of water around. The Rural Fire Service has 2 semi-trailers here, and again we're being very well supported by the local private enterprise and council with regards to bulk water supply. Anybody? Questions? I'm just going to give a few other people the opportunity to speak.
Thanks, Brad. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Alan Brown. I'm the group captain west of here, but Bruce Angel's away at the moment, so I'm helping out with this meeting. Just a bit of local stuff. You'll see there's some radar breaks around the town. There's no intention to do anything but put those in at the moment. We won't be burning off them until it becomes absolutely necessary. In the area of Tunga Settlement Road through to, those of you all know, McAllister's block, we put the senior deputy from Tarcutta through there within the last 24 hours to patrol the whole area, and he said it's basically very good. There's no guarantee, of course, that we've got absolutely everything out, but those of you who know the Westbrook Road will know where Lewis's block is, behind Gavin Pincott's. There's a very large area in there of unburnt country outside the line, so if you see smoke going up from there, we'll be onto it, but there's no guarantee because the fire's well away from the actual break line and we can't do anything about it other than wait. So there is a weak area there. I've spent a lot of time on the Westbrook Road, and we were very successful in stopping the fire crossing the Westbrook Road, which is a major achievement for local firefighters. And we're currently spending a lot of energy in the Tarrudale Road area and Tumbarumba because of the necessity to try and get some control up there. But generally speaking, this area, we've been looking at it continuously since this fire broke out. Generally speaking, there's quite good containment lines on the lot. Where they were weak, we put dozers in and put extra lines in trying to hold it. But do understand that it may well go up, particularly in that Lewis's block, because there's about 1,000 acres in there that hasn't burned yet. Thanks, Brad.
Joe?
Thanks, Brad. Joe McGur's my name, the local member. I just acknowledge Steph Cook, member for Cootamundra, and Superintendent Noble. I've been trying to get to as many briefings as I can. Clearly we're still in a fire situation I want to thank you for turning up. I realise people are anxious. That's the first thing. Thank you. Secondly, I want to thank the RFS, the emergency services. They've done a great job so far. There's been some pretty catastrophic stuff up in the hills. I'm sure you've seen it all on the media. The big task for us now is recovery. So we're still in a fire situation, which is why we get these briefings. But the government, to be fair, has started moving very quickly on recovery. There's a lot of work to do up in the hills, but that work's already underway. The recovery coordinator's already been appointed. He's visiting. The Premier will probably be down here tomorrow to visit, and that's underway. I just want to reassure you about that. Please, I know you guys will take heed of the RFS, but I do want to acknowledge and thank them for the work they're doing. Thanks, Brad.
So just wrapping up, I'm just looking at the latest weather here in front of me for Friday. Maximum temperature, this is for Tarcutta itself, 43 degrees with an overnight low of 19. The RH, one can only imagine, is going to be down in the below teens. The winds, interestingly enough, east northeasterly through to 11 a.m, which will carry some moist air. At 2 o'clock, when we start to look at the peak of the day, it's 40 degrees, the winds are out of the north at 20 kilometres an hour. And then at 5 p.m, we're at 42 degrees, winds west-northwest, 28 kilometres an hour, so that's where we get our dry air out of the interior of Australia. And that's when we'll start to really see increased fire behaviour in some parts of the fire ground. Then by 8 p.m, we expect to see a change come through. We'll see a reduction in the overall temperature, but the winds will pick up to 44 degrees under a southwesterly influence. So, essentially, for those of you who don't quite get it, the peak of the day we're here, and once the change comes through, the southwesterly influence will be in that direction. What we expect to see out here, where I mentioned all of that uncontained edge, where we've got active pockets of fire, we will see fire runs out there. So in the Gubagandra Valley, Gubagandra, I'm going to get smacked, I reckon, with these pronunciations. We will see fire runs out there. We've got 60 plus kilometres in one area alone to try and get some containment lines further established and develop along some of the existing roads out there. So we've got a lot of work in front of us. This fire isn't going away as a whole for possibly 2 or 3 weeks before we get it contained, and then we've got to manage it and patrol it for another couple of weeks at least after that before we'll be confidently be able to say that it's out. And that's what we've been experiencing right across the state since early August. Okay. Does anybody else have any questions? Yes, ma'am.
Something I'd like to say.
You'd like to speak? Sure.
I'd just like to say thank you to all the people that have saved our house and the house next door. Further up the road, we're not so sure it's all going to be okay later, but I think it will be. So it wasn't just the locals around our house, it was all those that did all the work before, put all the work in, as you said, all the containment lines, the work that was done for days and days and days before. And it's the same with everybody, but even though you don't see the people in the houses at the time, trust me, they're all very bloody grateful. Thank you.
Oh, okay. So
Pharmacist.
the pharmacist, which pharmacist would that be, sir? The bush chemist in Wagga, for anyone from Tumbarumba that may be in the room. If you need medicines, they should have all of your details at that location. They'll be able to help you out.
Glenn's phone number for him, we'll organise it up on the
Glenn's the bush chemist, is he? If you happen to have Glenn's phone number, the bush chemist,
No, he's the bush chemist from Tumba.
oh, bush chemist from Tumba, he'll help you out. Okay. Just, oh. See you there.
Martin Bruce is my name, from the Riverina Local Land Services. I'm at Wagga Wagga as the livestock officer, but the reason I'm here, I just wanted to make sure you people are aware, I've just got a brochure, a flyer that's up on the a table near the back door there as you're exiting, but it's just in regards to assistance with animal welfare issues and all the fire issues. So anybody that's already been affected by the fires, and unfortunately you might have animals that could require you mainly be putting down, or you require some fodder. We do have a fodder distribution centre at Adelong, and we're looking at getting one started very shortly down at Holbrook. But the key to getting assistance is you've got to be registered, and there's an 1800 number. You've probably heard us speak about it on the different media formats that have been going out the last 24, 48 hours. But this is an 1800 number that you contact, that you can register your interest. We've got situations with animal welfare all requiring fodder, and then the team at the command centre then will be able to allocate those resources for you. So I just wanted to make those comments. Thank you very much. But these are available as you exit on a table at the back door, near the back door. Thank you.
So I just wanted to say one last thing, but before I do, a number of us will be staying back just to answer any questions that you may have that you didn't feel confident to ask in open forum. We're happy to hold back. I've got Brad and Katie Collins here, our local chaplains. Should you wish to speak to them, obviously the council representatives, the local members, etc., will all hold back for a few minutes and help point you in the right direction if you need assistance, answer any questions and fill in any gaps that you may have. But what I wanted to say was, the local RFS membership here in this community, which I work within and help with, and I don't get to see all of the volunteers. I spend a lot of time talking to them over the phone, and they've done an outstanding job resourcing and working this side of the fire. Yes, a lot of attention has been on the western side and the southern areas where there's been some significant threats to property and some very expensive infrastructure. But you haven't been forgotten about. Your local volunteers have done an outstanding job in resourcing this fire for 14 days and will continue to do so. So just be mindful of that. We're here to help. We're here to do the best job possible, and hopefully it all works out in the longer term. Thank you very much for coming.